that funky solo guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 on the Evil FB Network YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in iNewsWire, Roy Blecker. You'll see my nice, smiling, shining face coming across the airways. Of course, we'll join the Mighty Met KMET as we usually do at the bottom of the hour. And what a day, Spencer Pratt unleashing war on the establishment and the crooks and thieves that have been picking our pockets for eons. We'll roll into that. Maybe it has a correlation to Reagan's speech 62 years ago. You might delve into that. Tow truck drivers fighting for his life after an attack on the 210 freeway. Voter ID updates and more. But as our lead story of the day, pilot bails in the plane in a death jump, leaving the student pilot to fend for herself. So what would you do in that situation? When you're in flight, dude bails, pilot says, hey, sayonara, hasta la vista, goodbye, I'm out of here. Here's a couple of the reports from YouTube Shorts. See if this will play.
Instructor opens the aircraft door mid-flight over Cordoba, Argentina, and jumps. Here's what we know as of July 8th, 2026. A 22-year-old student pilot was flying a training flight in a Cessna 150 with a flight instructor out of Aerodromo Coronel Olmedo.
So this was in Argentina. 22-year-old student pilot. So they're cruising along, whatever instructions she's getting from the pilot. The pilot decides to bail. Man, you hear that, what if you're on a plane and the pilot has a heart attack or, brain aneurysm and keels over? Well, if you're on an airline, there's usually a co-pilot that can take care of that. Or, what was it, the movie Airplane? Which one was it where the dude, this is 50 years ago, where the pilots got, some hit the plane or something, they got sucked out and the stewardess lands the plane. Poseidon Adventure was a boat. What was that one? Karen Black, anyway. Shows how long ago that was. But what would you do in that situation? Man, that's got to be frickin' lottery odds. Of all the things and scenarios you go, you're a student pilot, got this dude, Cessna 152 or 150 or whatever, very eons been used as student pilot planes. It's very simple plane, easy to fly, yada, yada, yada. Here's a dude says, hey, I'm gone. Here's another report from YouTube Shorts. Here we go.
Flew the plane and explained the flight maneuvers to her. Then he took off his headset, packed his things, and simply said, you know what to do. You know what to do. Keep flying. Shortly afterwards, he unbuckled his seatbelt, opened the door, and jumped out of the plane. Yeah.
So the dude was dead. They were at about 1,000 feet above the ground. No parachute, no nothing. It's a absolutely fascinating, out of control story that you will hardly, maybe you will never hear this again. This is like once, if you live the rest of your life even if you're a youngster. You may never hear this story again in 70 years. I can't remember ever. Student pilot, your instructor decides, hey, you know what to do. Fortunately, she had been flying and she had done a solo landing, landed the plane, and at least she was safe. The instructor is deader than a doornail, of course, after 1,000 feet fall and you hitting the ground at full speed of whatever aerodynamically and gravity is hitting you at the ground at 56 miles an hour or 60, and you go splat. Like the Wile E. Coyote cartoons, except he didn't come back. Sad story. Southern California tow truck driver fighting for his life after 215 freeway attack. Here is the Fox 11 report. Hopefully, here we go.
Last week. Tonight, we're hearing from his loved ones. Fox 11's Laura D is live in Laverne. Laura.
Christine, we first told you about this story last week. As you just mentioned, the victim in this case is a father of one, and we know that he is battling for his life in a nearby hospital.
He got all these injuries and all these gunshots and all that, and he was just speaking, and the only thing that he wants is that somebody call his wife to let her know that he was injured.
This is 56-year-old Jorge Arias Mayen, in better days, enjoying life. A dedicated family man and loyal worker, a tow truck driver, as you see in this video.
Hey, thank you guys for your service. You're welcome.
But July 3rd, his world came crashing down.
There's no tow truck nearby. I see the raising. There's an unknown male on the right shoulder with a gun.
According to investigators, Mayen responded to a call of a motorist out of gas on the 210 freeway near Grand Avenue before 3 a.m. But instead of rendering aid, he was shot and slashed multiple times, allegedly by that motorist. Passers-by called the attack in, and CHP gave chase. Authorities shot the alleged assailant to death after he allegedly exited the car armed with a gun at a gas station in Covina. Video at the scene shows Mayen getting emergency aid before he was rushed to Pomona Valley Hospital, where he remained Wednesday night, reportedly in critical condition. But the mother of his child holds on to hope, she tells me in Spanish.
Si tiene esperanza, mi esposo va a regresar a casa.
The family depends on Jorge as the sole provider for their family. They're asking for help.
He's fighting for his life, and it's hard. It's hard because, I don't know, I mean, they got a kid, and he's the only support for the family. And
if you would like to donate to the family, go to foxla.com. We have a link to the GoFundMe there. But Christine, just a tragic story, and this man continues to fight for his life tonight.
We wish Jorge the quick and speedy recovery from this. He worked for Jan's Towing, longtime racing sponsor out here in Southern California of that. But man, what a tragedy coming on. At least the perpetrator, cops took care of that. The end of the chase. What kind of demented Yahoo does something like that to their fellow man? We'll get into the Spencer Pratt stuff, maybe the Reagan speech from '62, see how they correlate, possibly. Spencer Pratt has declared war. We'll get into that much, much more on the rest of today's show. Man, oh man. Two very interesting stories. One hopeful tragedy here in the IE area, plus the wild, bizarre story coming out of Argentina. That one's almost beyond unbelievable as they say, but man, it's something else. This whole voter ID. It's beyond out of control. Here's Harmy Dillon, Assistant U.S. Attorney, Civil Rights, which elections are under her purview. Hit the video. Let's see if it will play.
This week, the Civil Rights Division has been focusing on election issues as we head into the midterms. Now, among the things we did this week was send a memo and a cover letter to all 50 state election officials and the District of Columbia, reminding them that under several federal statutes involving voting that I administer here at the Civil Rights Division, it is a crime to knowingly allow non-citizens to vote in those states' elections. Now, people got very hysterical about this. I got a lot of pearl clutching from Adrian Fontes in Arizona and talking about a slippery slope, and Deirdre Hutchinson in Utah claimed she was being singled out because she refused to give us the voter rolls under our civil requests for that information to help those states that we requested clean up their voter rolls. The Washington State Secretary of State also made some remarks. The reality is no one's being singled out here. We want all people to be reminded that it is a crime to vote in a federal election if you're not a citizen. And it's also a crime if you're an election official or somebody up that food chain who knowingly allows it or conspires to make it happen. And so there are, in fact, people are a little shocked because no one enforces these statutes, but there are actually so many of them. I wanted to go through a refresher, and there's so many of them. I want to make sure I get these numbers right. So there are multiple federal laws, of course, that make it a crime for non-citizens to vote under.
Key to that, a ton of federal laws that make it illegal to vote in a federal election.
Particularly the 18 U.S.C. Part of the code. 18 U.S.C. Section 1015 makes it a crime to claim you're a citizen for purposes of registering to vote. Section 911 makes it a crime to falsely and willingly misrepresent your citizenship in the United States. And non-citizen voting in a federal election is itself a different crime, Section 611. But beyond that, there's more. Under the Help America Vote Act and the National Voter Registration Act, it's also a crime to aid and abet these crimes that I just mentioned. So Section 12 of the NVRA states that the procurement, casting, or tabulation of ballots that are known by an election official to be materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent is a crime.
Not only can you be, if you individually break the law, the federal law, and register or attempt to vote in a federal election, if you aid and abet somebody. Oh, you know, maybe those down there in LA who are scouring Skid Row and everywhere else for petition signatures, register to vote, bunch of ballots going back to their addresses, it's alleged.
Help America Vote Act, Chapter 209, similarly indicates that it is a crime for anyone to conspire with another to give false information in registering to vote, 52 U.S.C. Section 21144A. Now, to be clear, each of these statutes has what's called a knowledge requirement, and we call it in the law, we learn in law school, scienter. Guilty mind, that means that there has to be a knowledge by the person who you're charging with a crime that they're doing this. And so, you know, if you're not doing this on purpose, then you have nothing to worry about. But many election officials in our country are on notice because there actually have been several federal prosecutions since this Trump administration involving non-citizens voting. And just this week, there was someone who's an Australian national who's voted in multiple elections. And as you stay tuned in the news, you're going to see more prosecutions that we're currently investigating and dealing with, and there have already been several. In addition to that, Civil Rights Division has also obtained a guilty plea together with our colleagues in Los Angeles of a woman who was illegally registering untold number of homeless people using a false address.
So as Harmeet Dillon explained, and she said those, if you're in the country illegally, or you're in Skid Row and you're just signing this for the $2 to get whatever, let's not even get into that. But you're not intentionally, you're not looking up the law and saying, well, I'm in the country illegally and I'm going to scheme to vote. If somebody's approaching you, signs you up, just sign this, we'll do that, send the ballot here, just sign the form, yada, yada, yada. You probably have nothing to worry about because you didn't go your intent was not to break the law. You might have broken the law, but the person that paid you, encouraged you, aided and abetted you in any way, threatened you, coerced you into doing this, they could be in a heap of trouble because they knew the difference between right and wrong. They knew it was against the law for what they were doing. And then they're doing that. The person that technically committed a misdemeanor or a felony in election law probably and most likely would not be charged and probably shouldn't be charged because with that crime, because they didn't know the law, they weren't willingly trying to skirt the law, they weren't willingly trying to affect the elections, somebody else was putting this stuff in their ear. So that's from Harmeet Dillon, Assistant U.S. Attorney General for Civil Rights, which is in charge, her division is in charge of elections, federal elections. So I would say that's a credible source. Here's what El Presidente Donald J. has to say. Here we go.
Illness, disability, vacations, you can't get there, you're away, business. But other than that, you should go and vote. And if you don't, people cheat. People cheat. You look at California, look at what happened to the Spencer Pratt thing. I mean, the votes, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of votes gone. Well, he didn't make the runoff. He was so far ahead of third place, it was ridiculous. Maybe ahead of first place. But look at that. Look at what's happened with Steve Hilton. Had the U.S. Attorney not started an investigation, they would have gotten Steve Hilton out too. So it's we're a third world country in some states with respect to voting.
And who has led that third world charge in voting in the United States, in skirting our election laws? The once golden state of California, where we have encouraged that. We have turned a blind eye. We have not cleaned the voter rolls, which is like LA, 141% over registration over eligible voters. That means, let's say there's 3 million eligible voters. And let's say 2 million eligible voters in the city of Los Angeles. There's about 4 million people. There's probably a little bit more. They're 141% over the registration, 141% over the eligible voters. So that means they're at about 2.8 million registration for 2 million voters. How that allows voter fraud. I've tried to explain this to everyone. I guess I'm not doing a good enough job. With 141%, you could have, 80% vote of 2.8, which means between about 2.3, 2.2, 2.25 million people casted votes. Well, there's only 2 million registered voters. But it looks like, well, this is completely possible. There's only 80% of the registered voters who voted. How could there be any fraud? Well, there is fraud, and we've had during COVID, we've had 80% turnout. If you look at LA County, it almost had to be fraud. Back in the 2020 November election, that Joe Biden suddenly got all these votes. So when you look at this stuff, everybody says there's no evidence. Well, there's evidence. Nobody's doing anything about it. You can't get it into court. They throw it out into the standing. Or technicalities. But your people, yeah, no, can be do. There you have no proof of it. You have no evidence. Yet there's plenty of evidence. As Harmeet Dillon is showing, now we're getting convictions. And why are they hoo-hawing in Arizona and everywhere else? It's the federal government. The federal government has a right to know if a state, a county official, or whomever is registering and allowing people in the country illegally to vote in federal elections. It's like the deal with the diaper contract in Newsom. Just hand over the frickin' contract. Should be no secrecy. There's no, whatever. I mean, no intelligence. The CIA or the military can't say you're endangering somebody. You're endangering national security or lives by turning that out, which I don't even know why that would be relevant in a California contract. But for 60 days, they've been skirting Julie Watts of CBS 2 in Sacramento, of all kinds of excuses of why we can't see the diaper contract. Man, it's beyond almost anything we've ever seen. Spencer Pratt is declaring war. I tuned his thing up a little bit. But he has thewarfoundation.com. The picture of Teddy Roosevelt join the fight. Teddy Roosevelt on Mount Rushmore, one of the 4 presidents. The W stands for Win the War Against Political Corruption with Innovative New Media. This is going to be key. And as we move forward getting candidates elected, we win. I've said it, Royism 101. You can have all the great ideas in the world. 98.7% of them are not going anywhere unless you can communicate them. And the war against political corruption, stupidity, picking your pocket, that victory or defeat in a large part is how we use the new media in innovative ways to connect with those who that's where they get their news and information and whatever. They don't get it. If you're under 50, you don't watch the TV. You don't listen to the AM or FM radio. You don't read magazines or books. You look at the 3x5 screen. And as you roll down millennials, Gen X, late Gen Xers, millennials, Zers, whatever's coming after that, that percentage gets to maybe starts out at 10 or 20%. Use the old media to almost 90%. Do not have never. When you get down to Zers, they just don't even know what you're talking about. You might as well be talking about horse and buggies and muskets and all sorts of things like that. Mule-driven plows. That's about how they relate to it. You've got to do that part of the game. The A, advocate for transparency, accountability, and integrity in government and culture. We cannot let them, at any point, like with Julie Watts, on the contract there. Elaine Jensen just put out a video at Alta Loma School District. They're not televising the school board meetings. Here they try to cut us off, teachers, school districts. Brandy Clark, the president, tried shutting me up at the last meeting. It's going to take 50% plus one of us, a vast majority, to join the fight. Not talk on your computer, not sit there and talk to your buddies, eating lunch at the local cafe and bitching about crap. It's in you getting in these political people's faces and demanding the accountability and integrity and transparency. The R, restore common sense and roll back the long march of socialism through our vital institutions. And that's what the War Foundation from Spencer Pratt. We need more people to join the fight. He got screwed in LA. We'll go through that. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. We'll go through the Spencer Pratt tapes. He's got two of them, one on the War Foundation and one on what happened with the fight. And like he said, my fight is over. My house is burnt down. What we need to prevent is the next people's houses, whether it be Pacific Palisades or Altadena or Paradise up north and many in between. We need to prevent that in the future. We need them to prevent in the future us picking our pockets. From the federal government, we need to reduce the $2 trillion deficit. We need to reduce the structural deficit in the state of California, in most of our counties, school districts, cities. And we do that by putting the pressure on them in front of them.
30 seconds.
In their face. not living vicariously through the 3x5 screen or thinking somebody else is going to do it or anything else. As Jesse said, we'll be joining the Mighty Met KMET here in a few seconds. We'll pick up on this thing. We'll roll with Ronald Reagan's speech 62 years ago. 60, yeah.
2 seconds. Here we go.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the aforementioned AM band, joining our vast video audience on the Evil FB Network, YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in IE Newswire Roy Bleckert, you'll see my nice, smiling, shining face. Lots going on. If you didn't catch this, go back in the archives, IE Newswire YouTube, check out our lead story of the day as it came up. Pilot bails the plane in a death jump, leaving the student pilot to fend for herself. And I can't remember the movie from 50 years ago when, I don't know, something crashed into the 747 and it sucked the pilots out. And I think it was Karen Black, the stewardess, lands the plane. But that was a Hollywood movie. One young lady, student pilot, experienced this as a dude jumps out, falls 1,000 feet to his death. Again, you will probably never see, even if you're a youngster and you're 10 years old and you live to be 84 and 74 years, you'll probably never hear a story like this again. Man, that's got to be lottery odds. See how it all turned out on that, though. Absolutely. Once in a lifetime. How'd you like to be in the student seat and the instructor saying, hey, this, do this, this is how you do that. All of a sudden he opens the door and says, see ya. Wow. We covered the plight of Jorge Mayen, who was struck and critically injured in an attack. He was a tow truck driver for Jan's Towing, longtime race car sponsor around Southern California. He was shot at, critically injured. The cops chased down the perpetrator, killed him. He's still in critical condition, fighting for his life. Check out that story if you want to help out the family. It'll give you the links and abilities to do that, but that's another one. We got into the voter fraud. Harmeet Dillon gave us why and how the parameters for how you can get convicted if you are either willfully in this country illegally and voting in our elections, or you're aiding and abetting somebody to do that, and who should be nervous about this and who not. Spencer Pratt's New Deal, and we'll probably cover this some more tomorrow, but he's got the War Foundation, thewarfoundation.com. Join the fight. Win the war against political corruption with new innovative media. That's the WA. Advocate for transparency, accountability, integrity in government and culture. R. Restore common sense and roll back the long march of socialism, should be communism, throughout our vital institutions. And we'll cover some of Spencer Pratt's videos tomorrow in depth. But, as you see, Spencer Pratt, put on by the Hodge twins. F you communists. F you communists. This is our home and you can't have it. And where I want to go with this is we're going to look at 62 years ago, 1964. Barry Goldwater was the Republican nominee. He was from Arizona. He was a pretty good libertarian, freedom and liberty type. Kind of got squirrely as a senator later on in life, but most of his career he was very good in the Senate of standing up for us Americans. He ran against Johnson, Lyndon Baines, the crook from Texas, who I still believe had a very big role in the John F. Kennedy assassination, and thus he was VP under Kennedy, and stole the election in 1960, which most people do not deny, for Kennedy from Richard E. Nixon. This is excerpts from Ronald Reagan in 1964, 2 years before he became California governor, and then later on president in 1980, served 2 terms in each. But notice some of the themes and maybe some of the cultural differences and similarities from today.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. Not too long ago, 2 friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
If we lose it here in the United States, this is somebody coming over from Cuba. And he said, you know what? At least I had someone to escape from the tyranny of Castro. Where Buffoon Bass, the current mayor of Los Angeles, studied and worshipped Fidel Castro, the communist creep from Cuba. And he said, yeah, I was lucky I had somewhere to escape from Cuba to the United States. This is it. If we use the US of A, if we lose this, if we lose our freedom and opportunity here, it's over for everyone. This is 62 frickin' years ago.
And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
A few intellectual elite think they can plan farther, better than us for our lives. Isn't that what the communists, now becoming the majority of the Democratic Party, oh, we can make all the decisions free, be happy. Mom, Mommy, everything's going to be free, free, free. We're just going to take it from somebody else and give it to you. Not mentioning this has failed at every attempt in recorded human history that has ever been tried. He leaves out that little factoid like Castro or Khrushchev or Idi Amin or whomever.
You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down. Man's old age dream, the ultimate in individual freedom consistent with law and order, or down to the ant-heap of totalitarianism.
So there you go. It's what I've said. It's not right or left. It's not Democratic or Republican. It's up or down. It's right or wrong. Do you want opportunity or tyranny? Do you want to be a slave or do you want to be free? This is Ronald Reagan 62 years ago. And no truer words have ever been spoken.
Regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course.
The old Ben Franklin quote of the woman in 1776 after they signed the Declaration of Independence. She asked Ben Franklin, "What have you given us?" And he said, "A representative republic. We've given you your freedom if you can keep it."
In this vote harvesting time, they use terms like the Great Society, or as we were told a few days ago by the President, we must accept a greater government activity in the affairs of the people.
Notice the vote harvesting. And how government will just give us your ballots and we will fix it for you. Don't ask any questions. In fact, if you ask questions, you will be punished.
But they've been a little more explicit in the past, and among themselves, and all of the things I now will quote have appeared in print. These are not Republican accusations. For example, they have voices that say the Cold War will end through our acceptance of a not undemocratic socialism. Another voice says the profit motive has become outmoded. It must be replaced by the incentives of the welfare state. Or our traditional system of individual freedom is incapable of solving the complex problems of the 20th century. Senator Fulbright has said at Stanford University that the Constitution is outmoded. He referred to the President as our moral teacher and our leader, and he says he is hobbled in his task by the restrictions of power imposed on him by this antiquated document. He must be freed so that he can do for us what he knows is best. And Senator Clark of Pennsylvania.
William Fulbright, senator from Arkansas, reportedly was real close to Bill Clinton's mom. Take that wherever you look at it. It's still out there. But we know more. We're Democrats. We're here to help you. You don't know how to fend for yourself. You do not know what's best for you or your kids. No, your kid is not a male or female. He can be a dog or a cat. Or an ant or a mountain or an ocean.
Another articulate spokesman defines liberalism as meeting the material needs of the masses through the full power of centralized government. Well, I, for one, resent it when a representative of the people refers to you and me, the free men and women of this country, as the masses. This is a term we haven't applied to ourselves in America. But beyond that, the full power of centralized government, this was the very thing the Founding Fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose.
To do what Buffoon Bass, Gavin Newsom, Mamdani, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Mitch McConnell, Ted Cruz, these government control artists, They're doing this to seek power. The Bushes, the monolithic presidency of Poppy Bush to Clinton to George W., Barack Obama. We only got a reprieve of Trump, then Joe Biden. Their policies were all the same. They were exactly what Reagan was talking about. And they could not, until they invoke the fear into you that, oh, the boogeyman's going to get you. That's how they delve you into their clutches.
They also knew, those founding fathers, that outside of its legitimate functions, government does nothing as well or as economically as the private sector of the economy.
As Reagan said, the most dangerous words you can hear are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. Royism 101, no matter how well-intentioned. 98.7% of the time, all government programs wind up in graft, corruption, and failure. And that's what Reagan was talking about 62 years ago. And it's even more critical and truer today.
Not too long ago, a judge called me here in Los Angeles. He told me that a young woman who'd come before him for a divorce. She had 6 children, was pregnant with her 7th. Under his questioning, she revealed her husband was a laborer earning $250 a month. She wanted the divorce to get an $80 raise. She's eligible for $330 a month in the Aid to Dependent Children program. She got the idea from 2 women in her neighborhood who'd already done that very thing. Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything. Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant, it's just that they know so much that isn't so.
I love that line. Trouble with the government control artists, the Democrats, the socialists, the communists. It's not that they're ignorant. Not that they're ignorant. It's they know so much that they don't know. Like that $250 a month. Just think of that. A family was surviving in Southern California in $250 a month with 6 kids. But, oh, like her 2 fellows or fellowettes, and the smarter half the population said, hey, dump the dude. You can get $320 and kick his ass out. This war in the straight white male has been going on in America for 60 plus years. This is how it started. And it was all, oh, look at what we're going to do for you.
Now, we have so many people who can't see a fat man standing beside a thin one without coming to the conclusion the fat man got that way by taking advantage of the thin one. So they're going to solve all the problems of human misery through government and government planning. Well, now, if government planning and welfare had the answer, and they've had almost 30 years of it, shouldn't we expect government to read the score to us once in a while? Shouldn't they be telling us about the decline each year in the number of people needing help, the reduction in the need for public housing? But the reverse is true. Each year the need grows greater, the program grows greater.
62 years ago, public housing is a failure. It rises the cost for everyone. It is detrimental to almost everyone except the individual who gets the housing at no cost to them, that they took the money from all of us to do that. They took food off of your table. They took the future away from your kids. 62 years ago, it was a failure, and now we're doubling, tripling, quadrupling, gazillioning down on this policy. How insane is that?
We were told 4 years ago that 17 million people went to bed hungry each night. Well, that was probably true. They were all on a diet. But now we're told that 9.3 million families in this country are poverty-stricken on the basis of earning less than $3,000 a year. Welfare spending 10 times greater than it was in the dark depths of the Depression. We're spending $45 billion on welfare. Now do a little arithmetic and you'll find that if we divided the $45 billion up equally among those 9 million poor families, we'd be able to give each family $4,600 a year. And this, added to their present income, should eliminate poverty.
It should eliminate poverty. But it didn't. It made it worse. Because now they had no, with the government handout that they took from somebody else and gave to you, which when it started out was fine. You know, there's 100 people rolling in to one person getting a benefit. They're taking it from 100, giving it to one. Or let's say 99 and giving it to one. 1%. When it becomes 10%, people are going, well, you know, the other 90% are going, you know, this started to hurt. It gets to 50%, we're going, holy crap, we can't work hard enough to sustain that. Now it's starting to collapse. That's why you're seeing, oh, we're having all these problems with budgets and this in good times. Because it's unsustainable.
Direct aid to the poor, however, is only running about $600 per family. It would seem that someplace there must be some overhead. Now we declare war on...
Only out of the 4,600, only $600 is getting to the people that supposedly were actually in need. You know, 5, 6, 7 times the overhead. Any business cannot run. Usually a 5%, 10% maximum on overhead. They're running at 600%, 700%, 62 years ago. Imagine what it is today.
Poverty, or you too can be a Bobby Baker. Now, do they honestly expect us to believe that if we add $1 billion to the $45 billion we're spending, one more program to the 30-odd we have, and remember this new program doesn't replace any, it just duplicates existing programs, do they believe that poverty is suddenly going to disappear by magic? Well, in all fairness, I should explain there is one part of the new program that isn't duplicated. This is the youth feature. We're now going to solve the dropout problem, juvenile delinquency, by reinstituting something like the old CCC camps. And we're going to put our young people in these camps. But again, we do some arithmetic and we find that we're going to spend each year just on room and board for each young person we help, $4,700 a year. We can send them to Harvard for $2,700.
That's the government way. And somebody going to CCC camp or getting a benefit or doing that or welfare, they think they're cutting a big hog in the rear end. They're getting sold down the river and they're going to collapse the whole system.
Of course, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting Harvard is the answer to juvenile delinquency. But seriously, what are we doing to those we seek to help?
What are we doing to those who we seek to help? What is Mamdani or Gavin Newsom or Mitch McConnell or John Thune and a whole host of others. So this goes across what do they think we're solving? No, we must declare war. We must demand the accountability, the transparency. We must fight this in ways we have never done before. The communism, the stupidity, using the new modern tools that we got. Most of all, a majority of us have to join the fight. We shall see if we got enough fight left in us. If men got enough balls, or have they replaced them with a phone? And they're willing to submit to whatever. Just please don't hurt us. Is that what we have evolved down to? Or are you willing to man up and join the fight? That's what we're facing July 9th, 2026, the 5th day after the 250th anniversary of the founding of the greatest country in the history of the world by some dudes that had some of the biggest balls that have ever been seen in world history. We'll see if we got enough balls left to keep it. That'll do it for today. As we usually say at this time, mandatory. Back here in 23 Hours Why. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
Have a great night.
You got it.